It's funny. Generally, Mondays are for overreactions. We air it out. We go nuts. We lose our minds a little bit. Tuesdays, generally, hit with a little bit of clarity here. We generally tend to stabilize here. So, I don't like doing this here, but, listen, the comeback the other night, the cute little comeback there by the Giants, that's not going to be much, buddy. The Giants have played 6 quarters this year. They have been abysmal in 4 of them. The 2 where they were really good, and they were really good, it's against the worst team in football. Saquon's going to be gone for, I know that they averted disaster, but probably 2-3 weeks here. They're about to get rolled on Thursday night in what's unfair for the schedule makers, to be fair to the Giants. Giants are who I thought they were coming into the year, a non-playoff team. I don't see it.
First of all, I think they're going to win the game Thursday night, but that's aside from the fact.
Wait. You think they're going to beat the Niners?
I do. And we'll get more into that Wednesday, Thursday. I do think they're going to beat the Niners. Yeah, these things happen in sports. It has happened before.
Boy.
Here's why, though. Daniel Jones is legit. Dude, I value quarterback head coach combination more than anything else when it comes to the NFL. It may not show itself in week 1 or week 2, but over the course of the season, and you move on more seasons, it will show itself to be the biggest measuring stick that there is. Head coach, quarterback in the NFL. And the Giants have it. They have it, BT. I was convinced that the Giants are more what they were in the second half against Arizona. And I'm not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl or win the division. Like, I understand the talent disparity between the Eagles and Cowboys and the Giants. I understand that. However, we saw something from Daniel Jones that we haven't seen from him before. That was an excellent half of football, throwing for over 300 yards, the multiple touchdowns. He's got weapons now. Jalen Hyatt, the Giants actually used his speed. They did things in that second half that I was expecting to see them do in the first game of the year. Obviously, they didn't for whatever reason, but I firmly believe that what we saw in the second half is more of an indicator of what this Giants team is than any of the first 6 quarters prior. They are legit. They will be a playoff team because of Dable and Daniel Jones. Even without Saquon Barkley, I still like the Giants' chance.
See, it's not a culture thing. I want to be clear about that. I like the direction of the Giants, and I'm a huge Dable fan, and I'm a Jones fan as well. But here's the reality of it. Thursday night is going to be a late night, And I did say this before, unfair. I know that other teams, if we cherry pick schedules, that they've got to deal with this, but sending the Giants out to Arizona and then have them, quick turnaround against the Niners, 2 West Coast games. West Coast, it's just, I don't know, that they're doing the Giants a little bit dirty there with the schedule making, in my opinion. But at the
first home game of the year for San Fran, their home opener.
Yeah, that too as well. Yeah, but at the end of the night, the Giants are going to be 0-3. I don't necessarily think it's going to be incredibly competitive. The Niners, you thought the Cowboys were good. Niners might be better. And I think the Giants, Thursday night around midnight-ish, will be, getting on that bus to get to the hotel, get to the airport, come back from SFO, 0-3, while every other team in their division's 2-0, getting ready to get a third win over the weekend. It's a problem. There's only so far you can fall behind. Now, I know how it's going to be heard, and that's fine. It's not a referendum on the direction of the Giants. I'm bullish on their future. I'm consistent. I didn't like them coming in. I thought there were some circumstances a year ago. Beat some teams that we thought would be a little bit better than they actually were. Tennessee's one of them.
Let me ask you. You think Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones?
That's a good question. I can't answer that yet.
Well,
I honestly can't.
But Daniel Jones has proven more. Brock Purdy's put in the system. And I'm not knocking the 49ers here, and this is not about the 49ers. But, I don't understand what you didn't like from what you saw in Jones in the second half. What's not to believe? Do you think that was just an aberration? Was that a fluke that Daniel Jones did what he did?
A little bit.
To me,
I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. Not so much Jones, but coming back from, 3 scores down.
Well,
I don't know if this
yes, but I'm talking, forget the result. I'm talking about Jones himself. There is nothing Daniel Jones cannot do on the football field. He's big. He's physical. He's got a strong arm. He's shown great athleticism. He can run the football when he has to. All of it was on full display in the second half of that game. Waller, Hyatt, they could run the football a little bit. I think Breida is a good back. Breida going up against one of his former teams, maybe looking to pay them back on Thursday night. I saw in that half of football the Giants and Daniel Jones in particular being unlocked to a level that we haven't seen that I expected them to see. Remember, I thought they closed the gap coming into the year. Obviously, after week one, it was like, oh, well, I was wrong. I look like a horse's patoot. They got killed. But what we saw in the second half was more of what I expected to see from Daniel Jones. I think that's what he's going to be, BT, moving forward. And if he is, with Dable, with Jones playing that way, they can beat anybody on any given night. Not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, not saying they're going to win the division, but they will be a playoff team, and they can beat the 49ers on Thursday night.
877-337-6666. BT and Sal here on the Fan inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair remind you that always get the guarantee lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Listen, I get it, but if it was flipped, right? And think about, this is why the Giants and the state of the Giants, like many teams in the NFL, to be fair, it's week to week and it's so precarious. You know where I stand, you know where Sal stands right now, how we view the Giants moving forward this year. But what if we flipped the scripts from Sunday? What if the Giants jumped on the Cardinals 20-0 instead of being, and was it 20-0 and 27-7, instead of the opposite? And instead of coming back, which they did, they imploded. We're sitting here saying the Giants might be getting first overall pick in the draft.
Right.
Like, the answer's probably somewhere in between. And listen, I give them credit. It's a great comeback. And Jones was terrific. Is there any other team in football that's going to let them come back down 27-7, more so than the Cardinals? I honestly don't know.
Well, the Cardinals stink. I get it.
But that factor, how do you fall behind 20-0?
Well, because the defense stinks, and that's a different story.
Bro, the Cardinals are going to eviscerate them. The Niners are going to slice them up.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. The defense look, they improved, but they stunk against the Cardinals on Sunday. They were getting steamrolled every which way. But I saw enough in Daniel Jones to think, it's not like we haven't seen it. It's not like it was just one half of football. He did win a road playoff game last year. That's a lot more than most, and it wasn't a fluke. And we can't always just say, BT, well, yeah, they came back against the Cardinals. Oh, yeah, well, they won a road playoff game against the Vikings. Well, he did it. I've watched it with my own eyes. Daniel Jones, who has shown signs, even in his rookie year, being able to throw the football. Obviously, last year, putting it all together, more so on the ground than through the air. But then in a half of football, throwing darts all over the field, making big plays with his arms, with his legs, carrying his team back from what seemed to be an insurmountable deficit. I don't care who it's against. It was on the road. It's an NFL game up against all odds, even against the crappy teams. He did it. And he did in that half what a lot of quarterbacks, matter of fact, the majority of quarterbacks in the NFL can't do. So I'm riding with Dable and Jones, believing that they are legit. It took a half. It took 6 quarters and we only saw it for a half, but it took 6 quarters to figure it out. But I think the Giants have figured it out.
It's funny, Sal just asked me, Purdy or Jones. In terms of toolbox, obviously I'd go with Jones. He's bigger, stronger, faster. But when you look at the money, that doesn't necessarily matter to the conversation. But Brock Purdy's obviously good. What's he making? $800,000?
Right. So value, you're talking about
Daniel
Purdy,
Jones. Yeah. I mean, listen, let's call it for what it is.
Well, Purdy on the Giants, though, you love doing this when we talk about this guy, if Mahomes played that night. Purdy on the Giants, you think he'd make a difference?
I think they'd still be 1-1.
Well, this year.
I don't,
you think Brock Purdy's carrying the Giants to the postseason the way Daniel Jones did last year?
No, to be fair. No. And I like Daniel Jones.
Right, but I guess my point is that Purdy, and I'm not trying to knock him, but he's more of a product of the system. You put guys in there. Yeah, with the Niners, you mentioned it yesterday, Nick Mullins or whatever it was, different guys.
Yeah, a couple guys have done it right there. Yeah.
I mean, they're fine regardless of who the quarterback is because they're good and they have a good system. Daniel Jones, BT, is legit.
I understand that.
That could be, you said it yourself, that was an MVP-type performance in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
That could be the beginning, and if I think the Giants can win Thursday night, I'm betting that it is the beginning of Daniel Jones really now cementing his place as a top-tier quarterback in the NFL.
So if they get rocked, we come in on Friday, let's say I'm just going to throw something out there, 30-17, and it's not even really that close, 30-13, 31-14. What are you saying? You still riding the Giants playoff train?
Yeah.
They're 0-3.
I think no.
I'm saying at that point they'll be 0-3.
No, they won.
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, at that point, exactly.
Yeah,
at that point they'll be 1-2.
They should have been 0-3.
Yeah, they'll be 1-2.
Yeah.
And a lot, the circumstance in the NFC. I know it's early. A lot of teams are starting to bag some wins, including a division that nobody thought would be very good. That's the NFC South. 2 teams have 2 wins: the Saints and the Buccaneers. So,
and the Falcons. Falcons are 2-0 as well.
So you've
Falcons-
got five teams in the NFC.
Falcons
that
are 2-0. The Aints are 2-0 after last night. The Bucks are 2-0. Niners are 2-0.
Commanders, Eagles, Dallas.
Correct. Nobody in the NFC North.
So is that 5 or 6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Then you've got
teams
Seattle,
2-0.
who you meet after this, and obviously, you guys played them last year. It was Gino looked pretty good.
I still think the Giants.
I don't see the path, man.
Yeah.
Listen, if they beat the Niners, clearly that's a shot in the arm. I think there's an element of what's the right?
I mean, they're gonna
fragility with the Giants. Like, I don't know how anybody can sit here with true confidence. I don't mean hope. I respect that. True confidence and say this is a playoff team. That's a tough sell for me at this point. Joe's in Peekskill, and he's first up on the fan. Joe, what's going on, bud?
Well, first of all, I'm with Sal. I
Okay.
think the Giants going to win Thursday night. I think that second half is a prelude of what's coming. I mean, if you remember, BT, you got to play 4 quarters, right?
Yes.
So even though they played like garbage the first half, even though they played like garbage against the Cowboys, maybe the real team showed up, and you need leadership. And there's no doubt about it that Jones provided the leadership. And when you have that, you get an intangible. And when you have an intangible in a locker room, a lot of things start to fall your way. You got a great coach. I think they have a really good system. And I think the combination of both is going to serve them real well this year, and they will be a playoff.
Joe, I respect it. Attaboy, Joe. I love it. You'll plant that Giants flag now. See, there's certain situations, certain years from a Giants perspective. You go into the year, you go into games, you say, we do what we do, we're going to win. I expect to win. Again, outside of blind faith and blind optimism, I think it's got to be hope. I mean, you hope to win. How can anybody tell me with a straight face that the Giants are in the same neighborhood as the Niners? You lost 40-zip to Dallas. You were losing 27-7 to the pitiful Cardinals.
Well, wait a second.
What are we talking about here?
You thought the Jets were going to beat the Cowboys based on what exactly? They stink.
Well,
Zach Wilson's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, if not the worst. So what's that based off of?
But that's not apples to apples. The Jets looked
it absolutely is.
No, it's not. The Jets looked a whole lot better against the Bills than the Giants looked against the Cowboys.
I'm going based off of what we saw from Daniel Jones in the second half. That's what I'm basing it off of. This is not just blind hope. It's that Daniel Jones. The Giants went to the divisional round last year. I mean, they were right there with the nine. Now, again, did they overachieve? Of course, but they went to the divisional round last year led by Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones on Sunday looked unlocked to me both through the air and on the ground. So I'm projecting that performance forward with Dable. Now, whether they actually win the game or not, I do think there's this feel like the Niners are so superior and the Giants can't compete. Giants are a live dog in that game. I expect them to compete. I think they're going to win the game and shock the world. Now, does that mean they're going to win the division? No. And it really doesn't even matter in one game in isolation because to your point before, even if they lose, I still think they're a playoff team. I think they're beating the Seahawks. I think the Giants are going to be a postseason team in the NFC. But it's not baseless. It's going off of what Daniel Jones showed in the second half and what he's done specifically last year.
I don't even think the Giants get to 500 the rest of the season. And that obviously that Seattle game is paramount for that to prove me wrong.
That's a swing game.
That's the game.
But similar to the Jets this week with New England.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a swing game for the Jets week 3. That will be a swing game for the Giants next week. And that's why I brought up the Cowboy comparison because not many people thought the Jets were going to realistically win that game. I know you thought so, and maybe Jet fans believed it, but
I thought they'd cover. I was hoping they'd win, but I thought they would cover.
So
I did.
Realistically,
but I was wrong.
Okay, well, which is fine, not a big deal. And realistically, I think it's hard to make a case for the Giants. I get that. But it is the NFL. I mean, upsets happen every week. How do you think people lose their shirt? How do you think people get knocked out of these knockout pools? Like, it can happen. And if I'm going to pick a live dog, it's going to be one with a legit head coach and a legit quarterback, which I think the Giants have.
All right, I want to get back to these phones, but I want to use the word that you just used, unlock. All right, so if that's exactly what went down in Arizona over the weekend, that Daniel Jones is officially unlocked now, we expecting 30 touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I said before the year, what was the number we went? Over 25?
I think it was 25 and a half. I think we put it right around there.
Hey, he's going over that.
We're going right there.
He's going over that.
After a great performance against a putrid team, following a putrid performance against a really good team, we're going like we're jumping that deep into the Daniel Jones. But all right, I respect. I don't see it. I don't agree.
It's not.
But I respect it.
It's not just off of that half. Remember, I liked him coming into the year, top 10 quarterback, and then I saw it in a half. So now I know. I saw last year.
Yep.
I thought he was a top 10. And by the way, him being a top 10 is also some circumstance where there's not great quarterback play around the league.
Last night was rough too.
So
all those guys were pretty bad last night, to be fair.
So that is a part of it.
Okay.
However, what he did last year, the lack of quality quarterbacks in the league, and what I saw in the second half, there aren't many quarterbacks in the league that could do what Jones did, even against a crappy team in a half of football.
But how many quarterbacks would fall behind 20-0? I guess that's my count there. Like, it's not all on him, but it's partially on him.
Well, let's hope that that's in the rearview mirror, and I think it is.
Kyle is in West Orange on the Fan, BT and South. Kyle, what's happening, buddy?
Going on, guys? How are you?
Good.
What's up, Kyle?
So I think you guys are crazy for thinking the Giants have a chance out there.
No, I think they're going to get smoked. I think they're going to lose by double figures, not me.
Yeah, I think they're going to win.
Our defensive line and offensive line are in shambles. Daniel Jones had more tackles than Kayvon last week.
He's been invisible.
That's an issue.
Oof.
Oh, I mean, so is that all you got? I mean, I'm talking about Daniel Jones. I mean, I think the Giants are going to compete. Look, if they don't, it's a different.
He played well in the second half, absolutely.
Well, he played great in the second half.
As best as he can. The defense is the issue right now, and so is the offensive line.
Well,
Nick Foles is going to eat him.
They're going to have to figure it out. I mean, that's up to Dable. That's up to Wink. They have to figure it out. They better be aggressive. They better show different looks because they are going to meet their match here. This team is probably better than the Cowboys who spanked them. I expect a significantly better effort from the Giants. To me, it's not just about that particular game, and maybe I shouldn't even say that. But I do think they're going to win, and I like them in that game, at the very least, to be competitive. They are a live dog. But the bigger point is I believe the Giants are a legitimate team to where we shouldn't be looking at them as this big disparity as the Giants are bottom feeders about to get stomped by the Niners. I believe in what I saw in that second half in Dable and Daniel Jones in particular with the weapons, Hyatt and Waller, as we mentioned. Sucks to not have Barkley, BT. Hey, that's how it goes. You're going to be out a few weeks here.
Nick Chubb is out. It happens.
I like Breida.
Dobbins stinks.
I know. Well,
it stinks.
Dude, that Chubb injury.
That's a tough one.
I couldn't even watch that.
That's a bad one.
Oh, my God, that was ugly. But I think the Giants will be fine. I really believe that. I know they're going to beat the Seahawks in a couple of weeks, but I think they're going to compete and beat the Niners this Thursday.
Jimmy Middletown checks in up next on the Fan with BT and Sal. What's going on, Jim?
Hey, Sal.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones plays for guard. He plays worse than Zach Wilson for 6 quarters. He plays good for 2 quarters. All of a sudden, he's the next coming. I'm a Cowboy fan. You give Dak 0 credit. He played like an MVP last year.
No, I like Dak. Dak was awful.
You don't like Dak. You don't give him any credit.
No, I did. Jim, it's first of all, it's not, and get lost. It's not about the Cowboys. First of all, here's a guy who just doesn't know what he's talking about. I've had it with you guys. If you're going to call up, at least have an understanding. You know nothing about me. I like Dak. I liked the Cowboys last year. Guess what Dak did? He sucked last year in the big spot, throwing interceptions all over the place. But this is not about Dak. It's about Daniel Jones at BT. It's not about 2 quarters. Like, what don't you get? If you don't like Daniel Jones, that's fine. I'm basing it off of what we saw a year ago and those 2 quarters on Sunday. That second half, Daniel Jones did something in that second half Dak Prescott couldn't do. He can't do it. He doesn't throw it and run it as well as Daniel Jones. Facts. That's a fact. Now, he's been a better quarterback in his career.
Yep.
I'm not going to take that away. A more successful quarterback. Daniel Jones was special in that second half on Sunday. You want to chalk it up for, hey, it was an aberration, it was against the crappy Cardinals, that's fine. I'm not doing it.
See, to me, the Jones stuff is separate from the Giants stuff. Like, Jones is a reason they might hang around, but I just see too many deficiencies. That's what worries me. Like, you mentioned Dak, and I do agree on some level. I think Jones has more pure talent, all right, than Dak, myself.
And
all
by
right?
the way, I do like Dak, but he was awful last year, throwing interceptions all over the place.
He led the league in picks, and he missed 5 games. He led the league in picks. He missed 5 games.
Right. I hate him. No, come on. We're just calling it how it is.
I got you on that. But, early, especially when he got to the NFL, that Dallas Cowboys offensive line was elite. Zeke was at the top of his powers, and Jones doesn't have that. I mean, Thomas is banged up. Neal's a mess. Although Schmidt's graded out great. He was #1 rated center. Well, good for him.
What does Thomas do? Is he going to be healthy this Thursday or no?
I don't know yet.
Yeah, that's going to be a big part of it.
I hope he plays. If he does, he's going to be compromised, obviously. But you don't have Saquon Barkley. You did have him for basically the entire game with the Cardinals here. So now all of a sudden, now you can make the point. Does a Giants comeback happen without Saquon Barkley on the field the other day?
Well, he was a beast.
That's what I'm saying. So now you got to eliminate all that.
Understood.
I just don't – listen, I know that they'll be coached up, and I know that conceptually they'll be put in a place to succeed.
Like,
Niners have just too many horses.
All right,
I think they're going to get blitzed.
The bigger picture is that this head coach and this quarterback, too good a combination to miss the postseason. Like, the Giants are a legitimate team. Because you're right, we went from, oh my God, these are the worst 6 quarters we've ever seen. They were embarrassing themselves. To me, okay, now this is what they are. They are a legitimate team in the NFC.
All right, so the real Giants, stand up. Please stand up. 877-337-6666. BT and Sal just out of the shoot on a Tuesday. Back to you and your calls next on The Fan.